The only thing standing between you and your goal is the B story you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it. From the movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. Hello, social media. It's Stephen Middleton coming to you from the Possibility Action Network. Our mantra is, I am, I can, and I will. I am Possibility Man. This February, we are focusing on entrepreneurship, great moments in business. Today, the spotlight is on Jeremiah G. Hamilton. But first, an announcement. I share information with professionals and business-minded people about a category creator, breakthrough technology that turns on your body's ability to heal itself, improve athletic performance, and reverse aging at the cellular level. Many doctors and health professionals consider it to be more important than the discovery of DNA. To learn about this technology, call my information line at 803-339-1101 or send me a Facebook friend request and a personal message. Jeremiah G. Hamilton was a stockbroker on Wall Street and a self-made millionaire in the United States during the 1800s. Although he's not a household name today, Hamilton was an individual to be reckoned with during his lifetime, especially in the state of New York. As we investigate Hamilton, there are two disclaimers I need to make to avoid any misunderstandings. First, I have not been able to confirm any photograph of Hamilton. There are photographs on the internet that are being represented as him, but in fact, no one knows what he actually looked like. Next, some white websites confuse him with Jeremiah J. Hamilton, the Texas legislator from 1870 to 1873. Moreover, there are also conflicting reports about Jeremiah G. Hamilton's place of birth. One source claimed that he was born a freeman in Richmond, Virginia. Another source suggests that he was born in Haiti, a country in the Caribbean, and had immigrated to the United States in the early 1800s, bristling with ambition. The evidence leads toward his Haitian birth because Hamilton was fluent in French, the official language of Haiti. The records are in agreement about his birth year of 1807 and his rise as a hard-nosed businessman in New York during the 1830s. With these in mind, Jeremiah G. Hamilton was a true capitalist, and he worked Wall Street as well as anyone in the 19th century. To be sure, Hamilton also engaged in shady business deals, just as other wheelers and dealers at any time in history, and today is not an exception. Hamilton, for example, made his mark in the counterfeiting trade during the late 1820s. At the young age of 21, he transported counterfeit coins from Canada to Haiti via New York. And he was in cahoots with prominent financiers and merchants in New York City. But Hamilton escaped prosecution, as were his comrades in the Big Apple. Hamilton understood how a capitalist system worked. For example, he would buy expensive property with other people's money during boom times in the real estate market. Then he would gauge the market and sell during down times. Once property value bottomed out, Hamilton would buy the same property for pennies on the dollar and sell on the rebound in the market. To buy when prices are low and sell when prices are high is a classic strategy of investors, and Hamilton used it effectively. On Wall Street, he managed what in today's terminology is called a hedge fund. He pooled the investments of moneyed individuals, then used these funds as leverage to borrow money from investors. His strategy worked, and he frequently reported gains, which attracted even more investors to him. Hamilton also increased his portfolio by taking an aggressive posture against stock companies from which he had bought shares. He would later sue these companies, alleging fraud in distributing profit shares to clients, which in effect forced the companies to redistribute funds to shareholders, which included himself. He sued, for example, the business titan and owner of accessory transit company at the time, Cornelius Vanderbilt, and won. And Hamilton built up an impressive stock portfolio, which included shares in railroad companies by using this tactic. Hamilton moved through the business world as many of his peers. Yes, some people tried to use his complexion to degrade him. To some, he was nicknamed the Prince of Darkness because he was a hard-nosed stockbroker with dark skin. Others called him the N-word Hamilton. But Hamilton had another way of looking at matters like this. He had the insight that the words of other people were powerless to harm him without himself opening a bridge to make him believe that those words were true. He kept himself safe, to be sure, but he was never troubled by the thinking of other people. As a businessman and investor, for example, he rented an office on Wall Street. He gave little attention to the real or perceived barriers to his day-to-day affairs. He saw his social relationships as his own business, and he chose his friends and his mate based on their compatibility. He did not perform a pigmentation test when he chose Eliza Jane to be his wife. He said he loved her. Benjamin Day, the founder of the New York newspaper, New York Sun, was one of his best friends. Business people and professionals in his immediate circle respected him for the way he saw the world. He was in business, and his daily routine was about making money in the stock market and turning other deals. Hamilton was a wealthy man. His family home was on a rural 270-acre estate in New Jersey. His house had 10 bedrooms, a ballroom, and a terrace. Two trout streams were on his property, as well as a large fish pond. And he had land for quail hunting. Of course, his critics had a great deal to say about how he chose to live his life. Writing to Frederick Douglass in 1852, James McCune Smith said, Jeremiah G. Hamilton was the only black millionaire in New York, but, McCune said, Hamilton was crass, and he spent too much time pursuing wealth. Mr. Smith would have liked it better if Hamilton had become a race man, instead of just an individual who moved through the business world as if he belonged there. James McCune Smith was not alone in his appraisal of Hamilton. One critic wrote, as if to poison Hamilton's memory, that he, with one exception, was the oldest Wall Street speculator. That term, speculator, was unflattering at that time, as well as it is today. Hamilton's friends remembered him differently. His judgment in banking was highly esteemed, one man wrote, and Hamilton was often consulted by prominent bankers. Another person acknowledged Hamilton as a capitalist, long identified with commercial enterprises in the city. Harper's Bazaar magazine described him as an intelligent, gentlemanly man. But others turned to his color, stating that Hamilton was the richest black man in the United States. Hamilton would have probably appreciated it more if that individual had said Jeremiah G. Hamilton was one of the richest men in America. How then should we remember Mr. Hamilton? His biographer wrote a book with the title Prince of Darkness, the untold story of Jeremiah G. Hamilton, Wall Street's first black millionaire. Mr. Hamilton, again, would have found this title objectionable. First, the writer used the language of his critics, of Hamilton's critics, because he subscribed to that gospel of wealth, as leading people have done since the founding of the United States. Hamilton would not have cared much for the designation black millionaire either. He saw himself as a millionaire. But this does not explain why historians and the media have virtually ignored him. Perhaps a brief comparison with another 19th century outcast, Mary Ellen Pleasant, a woman I talked about in these February broadcasts, will further our understanding as to why Mr. Hamilton has never been celebrated for his achievements. Mrs. Pleasant was a successful businesswoman and one of the richest individuals in the United States in the 1800s. She was a self-made millionaire by 1860, but we do not study her in school either, and she rarely appears in history books. The late historian William Edward Burghardt Du Bois leaves us clues as to why our society and historians like Dr. Du Bois do not take kindly to a Mr. Hamilton and a Mrs. Pleasant. In one of his popular books at the time, The Souls of Black Folks, Dr. Du Bois admitted that Mrs. Pleasant was effective and influential. She was one of the shrewdest business minds of the state of California and the city of San Francisco. Then Du Bois added she was a different kind of woman. How was she different to Dr. Du Bois? Mrs. Pleasant was a woman. She got involved in the growth market of her times, which included owning a brothel. She also invested money into raising an army to overthrow American slavery. Mrs. Pleasant and Mr. Hamilton do not represent the cult of respectability that some people aspired to at the time. They were as clever and as ruthless as anyone in American business culture, and they were unapologetic about it. Mrs. Pleasant, for example, left us a self-portrait. As for her business dealings, she admitted that she was a capitalist. Whorehouses were a growth industry in my time, she said, and owning them put me in contact with powerful businessmen and politicians who wanted the services my employees offered. Moreover, she said, the brothel was only one of many investments in her portfolio. She had real estate holdings, laundries, and she had invested well in the stock market. As to funding John Brown, she said, she believed that anyone who wanted their freedom should try to fight for it. She added, I was not a coward. I was willing to give my life for freedom. She reminded us that Patrick Henry said something similar when he declared, give me liberty or give me death, as the colonists looked to go to war against Britain at the start of the Revolutionary War. Mr. Henry's declaration is the stuff we write books about, but not so for Mrs. Pleasant. As to Mr. Hamilton, he too was a ruthless capitalist. They, Pleasant and Hamilton, were entrepreneurs. They realized that some people did not care for them for various reasons, but they didn't mind. They were not afraid of the thinking of others as they took steps to change their part of the world. For this, many people shunned them in our cultural history today. I'm Stephen Middleton, and I am with the Possibility Action Network. Our mantra is, I am, I can, and I will. And yes, indeed, I am Possibility Man. We care about individuals achieving optimal physical health. We care about individuals enjoying emotional well-being. And we care about individuals achieving financial fitness. If you or anyone you know fit into these categories, reach out to us. You'll be interested in what we are up to today. We have the tools to help if these are your interests. Until next time, I'm Stephen Middleton. Good day.